You may not be aware that several games on the NES are a part of the same universe and in the same series. Typically identified by the art style, the Kunio-Kun series is known for having short, squatty sprites with larger heads, and the games are themed during a time reminiscent of the 1950s or 1960s, such as with River City Ransom. The first game in the series was titled Neketsu Koa Kunio-Kun, which roughly translates to Hot Blood Tough Guy Kunio. The international version of the game was renamed simply Renegade and started out on arcades before being ported to consoles. The sequel was picked up by Ocean and is titled Target Renegade. This one is considered a spin-off and not technically a part of the Kunio-Kun series. The Kunio-Kun franchise is still around today, although it seems most of the recent releases in the US have been throwbacks or classic collection compilations. Renegade is a beat-em-up where you control Mr. K, a vigilante adept at street fighting who is trying to save his girlfriend. Totally unique premise here. Unlike other beat-em-ups, you don't stroll down the street finding thugs to wallop. Instead, you remain in the same area and the thugs come to you. Convenient. Starting out, you might think the game is tough, as enemies are aggressive and seemingly relentless, but once you get the hang of the controls, it's not too bad. As is typical in NES games where punching and kicking are involved, jumping can only be performed by pressing A and B together. A routine that I found worked well was to jump kick an enemy until they bent over briefly in pain, walk over to them and grab them by the collar while you knee them in the groin over and over before tossing them at other enemies approaching from behind. Rinse and repeat. You'll perform the classic jump, kick, grab, knee, body toss maneuver dozens of times, but that doesn't mean the game completely lacks variety. You start out on a subway platform where the funnest thing to do is grab guys and toss them off the platform and to their eventual death. The second stage, you fight some outlaw bikers near a wharf, although I'm not real sure what a wharf is, but this definitely is one according to the manual. And in this level, there's a road rash section. After you jump kick dudes off their motorcycles, which is oddly satisfying, you take one of the bikes and go speeding down the roadway kneeing other dudes off their bikes. Just don't go down too far or you'll fall off a cliff. For stage 3, the manual actually says you'll fight against killer kung fu females in an alley. So there you go. You beat them the same way, jump, kick, grab, knee, toss. Stage 4 basically determines how long you'll be spending with the game. It's a maze, and the punishment for going the wrong way is refighting a number of enemies over and over again, sometimes at a greater difficulty, meaning more enemies than you fought the first time. This part really sucks. You can beat the entire game in 15 minutes, or you can get lost in stage 4 and spend an hour fighting your way through each possible route. And a wrong route can lead you to even tougher enemies before sending you back to the first screen. This is where the game already starts to lose its already hazy luster. I tried choosing the doors to go through based on symmetry, based on if they had decorations near them, or if they had no decorations at all, and still it took me a long time to finally find the right route. The final boss is cheap too. He's the only enemy in the game to wield a gun, and it's a one-shot kill, so you'll have to avoid being on the same horizontal plane as him or you're dead meat. He's not tough once you know that, but if it's your first time facing him and you've just suffered through a nonsensical maze of doorways for the better part of an hour and get a game over in one hit, you might not ever come back to this game, so just a heads up there. There are some power-ups to find. If you find a hamburger laying around, call dibs. It gives you full health. The manual says you can do a running kick on the walls to find it, but the timer has to be on certain digits to pull it off. I didn't have the patience to try it for myself. If you find a heart, grab it. If you find a P, you hulk out, and you can kick dudes off the walls. Similar to the burger, you have to jump kick an enemy when the timer is on certain digits to get the P power up to drop. But the chances of you doing this unintentionally are much higher, as you'll be jump kicking almost constantly if you use my recommended jump kick grab knee toss method for vanquishing foes. Each time you enter a new room to face enemies, your health is replenished, so that's neat. And if you want to skip levels, maybe to practice the maze for a future complete run, the manual shows you how to do that, so that's neat too. Renegade is in no way even anywhere near close to the best beat-em-up on the system, but, barring the maze, it is a short playthrough that can be fun if you don't mind its quirks. The game is 2-player, but you can't play simultaneously, so that sucks. You can choose your difficulty on the home screen if you want more of a challenge. There's not much of a difference aside from the number of enemies from what I could tell. The arcade version has different level layouts and bigger sprites. The art style was westernized from the Japanese version a bit, and is reminiscent of the style from the film The Warriors. In the Japanese version, instead of saving your girlfriend, you're seeking vengeance against bullies of your friend. Target Renegade looks and feels different than its predecessor. It has more colors on screen and more detailed backgrounds, and Ocean switched the controls up some, and for the better in my opinion. You no longer have to press A and B at the same time to jump kick, but you do need to press up on the directional pad and A at the same time. It feels a little more natural this way though. Punching and kicking is still your main offense, and flying kicks are easier to perform. You can also dish out low kicks, which work well to keep enemies at a distance. Some enemies carry weapons now, and like Double Dragon, you can knock the weapons away and use them for yourself. Batter up! You can also throw stuff like whatever this is, and wastebaskets. Your health is shown at the bottom as status, and directions and hints will flash across the bottom of the screen, letting you know the direction to go or the best strategy for defeating a boss, which is almost always hit and run. Speaking of bosses, some are really simple, as in you literally just hit them and run, or slightly slide up the screen and let them walk into you over and over, and others won't let you within a foot of them before they destroy you. Hits from bosses take off a lot of your energy, so be careful. In general, you want to get in a quick hit and dart away without getting grabbed, but it's easier said than done. While Target Renegade looks, sounds, and maybe even plays better than Renegade, it does have some aggravating quirks. You can't pick up health if you're holding a weapon, and picking up health in general is picky sometimes. You have to be right on top of it. Enemies close in on you quick, so picking up health can sometimes be more of a risk than necessary, especially when you can't quite grab it. While I appreciate enemy AI that doesn't just stand around waiting to die, the enemies here will team up and flog you to death. And if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, you might get trapped in a death loop. On top of that, you only get one life. After level 2, you unlock a single continue, so at most, you have to make it through the game in under 2 lives, making this one a steep challenge. As the story goes, you simply go by Renegade, and not Mr. K this time around. Your brother, Matt, has been kidnapped by a villain named Mr. Big, who wants to be the next to be with you. Just kidding. But Mr. Big has sicked all the gangs in town on you, so you'll have to defend yourself and beat them all up before reaching Mr. Big's pig pen, where he has your brother hostage. There are 7 levels in all, each with 4 areas to fight through, culminating in a boss fight at the end against the gang leader. With just 1 life and 1 continue to spare, this one takes some practice to get very far in, so good luck. Well, that does it for the Renegade games on the NES. The first Renegade is very basic, but beatable if you have the patience to endure the repetition and the maze. Target Renegade is a better game in every measurable way, but does have a steep difficulty curve that sacks it a bit. Neither game has a true co-op experience, with Target Renegade having no multiplayer option at all. If you are curious about more games in the Renegade universe, there is a Renegade 3, the final chapter, but you'd have to be morbidly curious to try it out. The game was only released on the ZX Spectrum, Commodore 64, Amstrad CPC, and the MSX, so it's not super easy to access, and that's fine because it is no bueno. This is the Commodore 64 version shown here, and yeah, what's going on here? We went from bashing street thugs in retro America to dodging dinosaur eggs and fighting pterodactyls? Yeesh. Oh well, just say no to street violence, and thanks for watching.